The URC is back. There is so much rugby at the minute, and I absolutely love it. What's going on this weekend? Rugby Championship, Currie Cup final, Premiership returns, URC returns, top 14 continues. There's so much to talk about on the channel, and I will cover all of it. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers, and I would love it if you would get stuck in on this video with your comments on the URC. I'm going to go through the competition team by team with just a few headline thoughts on each. I'm going to predict who I think will make the playoffs, who will be in contention to win it, and I've got a list of some names that I'm expecting to have breakthrough years, but I'm absolutely certain you will be able to add to that list. So please use the comments for exactly that. Give the video a thumbs up while you're there, and hit subscribe, won't you? So I'm going to confess, I've said this before, I was dubious about this competition with the South African teams joining when they did, 3 or 4 years ago now. I wasn't sure the logistics of travelling, the lack of history in those fixtures, really, is that going to work? I was totally wrong. It is building year on year. And actually, when there was that story last week about Premiership clubs wanting to try and instigate a British and Irish league, it was really noticeable. Certainly from the Irish fans, seemed to be like a real defence of this competition and the structure that it's got. Wales were quite quiet on that. I think they might have an issue, and I'll come on to those. Scotland were sort of tight-lipped. I think they could go whichever way the wind is blowing. But those South African teams and those Irish teams, steel sharpens steel, and some of those matchups in playoff games have been absolutely dynamite. And of course, with the final with Glasgow winning away at Bulls, that was amazing. If you had to be constructive criticism for the URC, I've already mentioned the logistics travelling. That must be really expensive for the teams to do. And also, quite often you get B teams sent from South Africa to Europe or vice versa, understandably, because of the amount of travelling involved. So, that could be better. And also, I would say the top end of the league is absolutely amazing. Some of the teams down the bottom, there's a big gulf between sides, isn't there? There's no salary cap like there is in the Premiership. There's no promotion relegation like there is in the top 14. And some of the fixtures and some of the difference in quality, top to bottom, is affected as a result. But overall, an amazing competition, 16 teams, and sides will play, just to recap, they will play everyone from their country, or in the case of Scotland and Italy, from those two countries. They'll play everyone home and away, and they play every other team home or away, meaning you have 18 regular season fixtures, top 8 out of the 16 qualifying for the playoffs in a seeded quarter-final, semi-final and final, and the seeding carries right through, so there is never a neutral venue. It's always with the highest seeded team getting home advantage. So, team by team then, let's start with the champions from last year, Glasgow. What a story that was. What a night in Pretoria. Bearing in mind I was at Loftus Versfeld for the Ireland Test match in July, I know how noisy that place can be. And even on the television, I remember on that night just watching it and thinking, I cannot believe how quiet this stadium was. The blue seats, because it emptied out while the fireworks were going on. An amazing story for Glasgow. And this is a British and Irish Lions year. I think that's a really important point to emphasise, because there's going to be massive motivation for so many of these players to not just play well for Glasgow, but to cement their place in the national team come Six Nations, come November tests, so that they have the best possible chance of getting themselves on the plane to Australia for a British and Irish Lions tour. That's going to be huge. They have got a couple of props in to replace some of the guys that are leaving. Adam Hastings has come in as a fly half option. It's generally as you were, though, and they are the champions, and they're going to be a formidable team. Edinburgh, just up the road. Given the talent they've got, they had a disappointing season last year, but Blair Kinghorn was someone they lost to Toulouse, and they hardly saw Darcy Graham, Duan van der Merwe and Emiliano Buffelli together in the back three. Loads of injuries. If their pack can do a job, they have got some firepower. I expect them to do better this year than they did last. Leinster. Let's jump over to Ireland then. A must-win season for them. They've got to win a trophy, maybe all the trophies. The one they most want is the Champions Cup, and in fairness, they were one Keane Frawley drop goal away from winning the Champions Cup in extra time. The margins are so small. But when you don't win, then people come back and look at, hold on a minute, you maybe sacrificed the URC the last couple of years because your selections were all focused on having everyone fresh and fit for the Champions Cup, which they didn't win either. So can they possibly have it all? Well, Geordie Barrett will help there when he comes in December. RG Snyman is there and training. That's not going to hurt, is it? They've got serious depth and talent in their squad. They will be a contender. But I think the key thing this year for Leinster is those youngsters coming through. The next generation of Leinster players off their production line for club, province and for country is massively important for Ireland and for Leinster. And I think as a result, we will see them strong on all fronts this year. But it remains to be seen which competition they favour and what impact that has. The fans will not tolerate another year trophyless, though, I'm absolutely certain. And I'm sure that absolutely Leo Cullen understands that fact. Munster. Much like Leinster, they're going to be tough to beat at home. And Munster, maybe more than any other URC team, have shown that they have got capability and class on the road, and they will pick up wins away, and they will send a strong team away. And part of that is because they don't have a massive number, relative to Leinster, they don't have a massive number of Irish internationals that are taken away from them for big chunks of the season. So they can keep a kind of core squad together. They need to keep a core squad together because they don't have a really deep squad. There is a drop-off in some positions and a couple of injuries, and it can start to look a little bit threadbare. But if they keep everyone fit, they've got serious talent. And much like Leinster, they need some of these youngsters to start coming through. Edwin Idogbo and guys like that to get fit and play some serious minutes. Ulster, it's hard to know what they're going to do. I'm actually weirdly optimistic about Ulster. They've gone through all sorts of issues off the field, financial worries, and that must have had an impact on the field. They've big money signings like Stephen Kitsoff have gone back to South Africa. That's like €500,000 off of their wage bill. Dave Ewers was on a few quid as well. He's gone to Stormers. So they've balanced they're balancing the books, but I think more than that, they actually shown that they got a bit of togetherness together towards the end of the season. Real crop of good young guys coming through alongside some of the big names like these two, John Cooney and Bragg Stewart McCloskey. And I think they can do all right. They've got such a dynamite backline that if those young forwards, guys like Harry Sheridan, guys like Cormac Izachukwu, if they can go and start boshing people about a little bit, they have got a backline that is deadly. And Ravenhill is one of my favourite places to go and watch rugby. The atmosphere, especially on a Friday night under the lights, is so good. I would highly recommend watching a game in Belfast. It's loads of fun. So I think Ulster are going to do better this year. And Connacht as well, I think the same of them. But again, they need to keep all their big names fit. Because when they've got Bundy Aki and Mac Hansen and Cowlin Blade and Cian Prendergast in their side, they're going to be a match for anyone, especially in Galway. Can they keep all those guys fit? Because, much like other sides, their squad is not deep, but it does have a lot of quality in it. Let's go to South Africa then, and the Bulls. The beaten finalists last year. Absolutely devastating night. Do you know what? As tough as it is to hear if you're a Bulls fan, I actually think that might be the best thing for the league, because we have had 3 winners in 3 years from 3 countries. Glasgow, Munster, Stormers. Had a South African team won it 2 years out of 3, I mean, that would have been great for the Bulls. But I just think if you think about the bigger picture in the whole competition, a Scottish team winning it as well. And I guess if you count the Rainbow Cup, then Benetton won that, didn't they? So you could argue it's 4 countries in 4 years winning, potentially. Wales, your turn to step up and win. I'll move on quickly, because that's not happening, is it? Let's be honest. The Bulls could absolutely win it, though. They absolutely could go one better than last year. And the lessons that they will take from last year, I think, will be massive. There was obviously issues balancing on both fronts, sending a B team effectively to go in that Champions Cup quarter-final match. That may be the issue for the Bulls again, fighting on both fronts. If they get to the knockout stages in both, it's going to be a real challenge with all the travelling that's involved in that. They may have to make a call. If they made a call, it seems like URC is the one they focus on. And they're going to be a real weapon in that competition. And the thing is, when you look at their forward pack, they're getting better. With every year that goes by, they're getting better because what they have got in their pack is the next generation of Springbok internationals, the ones that are already mixing it up there. Ruben Nokia and Elric Lowe and Jan-Hendrik Wessels and Johan Grobelaar and the rest. So they have got proper talent, age profile. They're going to get better. No Kurtley Arendse. He's off to Japan. But did Diante's come in? I think that's the case. Anyway, let me move on to the Sharks. I beg your pardon. And the Sharks, they have to deliver on their promise now, don't they? They really have to. They got out of jail a little bit with winning the Challenge Cup, getting a bit of silverware, probably saved John Plumtree his job, got themselves into the Champions Cup. The question is, are they going to go for the Champions Cup now they're in that and kind of just be hot and cold in the league, or are they going to be a week in, week out team? And you get the feeling it's got nothing to do with talent. It's got everything to do with mentality with the Sharks. Marco Massotti has got his checkbook out and is spending vast sums of money on assembling an incredible squad. Internationals all the way through. Springboks galore. Andre Esterhuizen, the big name that's come in. Jordan Hendricks has come in. That's just to add to the amazing talent that they've already got. How could I not mention Sia Khaleesi? What a side they can put out. Will they do it though? Top 2 inches. Are those Springboks going to be motivated to go to Dragons on a Friday night and roll their sleeves up? That remains to be seen. I imagine they might focus on winning all their home games with their big guns in Durban, and then selectively picking the games they want to go and win on the road. And that should be enough to get them in the playoff contention, you would think, with the talent they've got. But that does remain to be seen. As for the Stormers, well, on the names alone, much like the Sharks, they have to be taken really seriously because they are star-studded. 2 big names in, Stephen Kitsoff and JD Schickerling. JD Schickerling, big in every sense. And I'm absolutely convinced this guy is going to be a Springbok by the end of the year. I was at the training ground for the Stormers when I went and interviewed Dion Faree and John Dobson. That video is in the channel. Go and have a look at that. I ask John Dobson, how on earth are you going to manage Libbok, Sasha and Willemse in the same team and the rest? And he gives an answer, which is worth having a look at. But JD Schickerling is going to be a Bok this year. I was at the training ground. That guy is absolutely enormous. But just think about the pack they could put out. Kitsoff and Malherbe, Dweeba or Fenter, Schickerling and Moerat, Ben Jason Dixon, Evan Ruiz, Dion Faree still to come back still, Baranas on his way back, Yankees, Sasha, Libbok, Willemse, Dan Duplessis, Suleiman Hartzenberg, Warwick Hallant. I've not even mentioned them all. They have got a dynamite team. The trick is going to be gelling them together into a 15. The awesome thing they've got is the ability to rest and rotate and still keep a consistent level of quality. And for that reason, I think they're going to be in business this year. We will see. And the Lions. You can't help but have a soft spot for the Lions, can you? It's like an underdog story. And it's the way they play. They're so fun to watch. Keeping the squad together is the toughest thing for the Lions. The Sharks have plundered a couple of their prize assets, but they've still got Morne van den Berg and Senele Nahamba and Edwin van der Merwe and JP Pretorius and the 2 Horns, Frankie and Kwan. They've got some absolutely dynamite players, and I love watching the Lions play. And yeah, it's much like I've mentioned with a few of the squads. Can they get enough good players out on the park at the same time, enough times to pick up enough wins to go deep in the competition? That remains to be seen. Benetton, they've added Louis Liner and Matt Gallagher from Premiership sides that are now converted Italian internationals. And this is basically the Italy team. And they're going to be in the mix once again, I've no doubt. Zebre, on the other hand, are not. They are the runt of the litter. And anyone that is good at Zebre gets picked up by Benetton. So it's very much Italy A, Italy B. And Zebre, one of those teams I mentioned at the start of the video, where the URC can improve, and there are some teams at the bottom that are just a gulf away from the top. And as for the Welsh teams, finally, it's tough times for Wales, isn't it? The union has made an absolute mess of it. The funding, the uncertainty for the players, and it's a really tough job for the coaches. And I think it's noticeable that Toby Booth, who did such a good job at Ospreys, really galvanised that squad. He said he's going to be stepping away at the end of the season. And I think that speaks to the mess off the field among those Welsh regions. And really, the question is, can any of them step up and make the playoffs this year? It would be amazing if one of them can. I don't know which. If that happens, it will be Ospreys or Cardiff. Cardiff have signed Callum Sheedy at fly half and Aled Davis at scrum half, which is solid. Ospreys, very little transfer news there. I think Cardiff could be a surprise package. They've got a lot of good youngsters that have stepped up to full international status for Wales. I don't know. Scarlets and Dragons. Yeah, it's just going to be a long, tough season for them. The one thing the Welsh sides have got going for them, I will say this, is the fact that because you play the teams from your own country, home and away, the fact that some of these Welsh teams might be quite poor, if one of them or a couple of them are really good, that means there's 6 games that you could pick up wins in. And if you win 6 games against your fellow countrymen, you are in a good spot to potentially be looking at playoffs. 6 wins out of 18, that's a third of the season. So if I were Cardiff or I were Ospreys, that would be one of the targets. Take advantage of the fact that Scarlets and Dragons are not in a great place. And again, I reference that because it's not totally the region's fault. The way they've been managed is, well, it's just been a bit of a mess. I can't help but feel sorry for them, but there you go. If I were splitting up the table, this is how I see it panning out. I've picked a top 4. I've picked a middle 6, 4 of whom I think will get to the playoffs. And I've put them in the order that I'm guessing they might finish. So I've got Munster, Leinster, Bulls and Stormers as the top 4, with Glasgow Sharks, Edinburgh and Benetton making the playoffs. That Benetton-Ulster battle again could be a tight one, but potentially Lions or Ospreys or Cardiff could sneak up. But there you go. I've got all 4 of the Welsh regions in the bottom 6, along with Lions, who just have a tough job in South Africa, just holding on to their players, and Zebre, who are, well, bobbins. Let's be honest. But there you go. That's how I see it going. I see. So by that, it would be Munster, Leinster, Bulls, Stormers, Glasgow Sharks, Edinburgh, Benetton into the playoffs. But anything can happen, and it'd be boring if it was played out on paper. What would be the point? The fact is, I could be completely wrong, and you may have totally different thoughts anyway, in which case leave them in the comments down below. Now, finally, I have got a bunch of players that I'm quite excited about for the new season. So I've just put my bit of paper down so I know which order I've put them in. But yeah, I've got 6 players that I am very excited about for the new season and breakout years ahead. For Cormac Foley at Leinster, they need a scrum half to step up and take over the backup job to Jameson Gibson Park from Luke McGrath. Cormac Foley is that man, and that could be a really good thing for Ireland as well. And another scrum half in Scotland, Ben Afshar. Now, he was on the bench in the URC final. Didn't get on, but a really promising young scrum half for Glasgow. So looking forward to seeing him. To South Africa then, and I said I've got 6 names. I kind of have, but I'm cheating and I'm putting 2 names together because the Sharks have signed Andre Esterhazen, that might have blocked the route through for this lad, Ethan Hooker, who in the Currie Cup final is going to be playing on the wing. He is absolutely class. Big unit. Andre Esterhazen's size, actually, quick too. I really like the look of Ethan Hooker. He looks like a future Bok international, no doubt whatsoever. And also Lorenzo Julius, his outside centre partner, South Africa under-20s player. And tell you what, I mean, Lekanyo Am is blocking his route at the minute, but I mean, what a player to have backing up Lekanyo Am. One of these 2, maybe both of them, will have breakout years in the URC this year. They're so good. To Munster, Edwin Adogbo. Mentioned him earlier, actually. Injured for much of last year. I was quite excited to see him. There's Tom Ahern. There's Cormac Izuchukwu from Ulster as well. A lot of good young second and back row players that are coming through in the Irish provinces. And some of them will be looking to get full Irish honours if he stays fit and if he plays, Edwin Dobo could be one of those guys. Cormac Izuchukwu, just mentioned him. He had a great year for Ulster last year. Maybe he's already had his breakthrough year, but I'm expecting big things from him this year. And finally, on my list of 6, Michael Milne, Leinster's loosehead prop. Leinster and Ireland need a backup loosehead prop. And I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that he will be on the bench for Ireland during the Six Nations next year. Maybe that's not even a bold prediction. He might even be on the bench for Ireland in the November tests later this year. He's a promising player. They need some loosehead props to come through. Let me know what you think. That is my wrap-up of the URC. Very excited for this competition to be coming back. And of course, on the channel, I'll be covering this and the rest of the domestic and international rugby. Anything where there's an egg-shaped ball, I'll be involved. And if you appreciate that fact, hit subscribe on the channel. See you on the next one. Enjoy.